Congresswoman Ilhan Omar built her brand railing against the wealthy elite. Now, new disclosures show that she has joined their ranks. Her household net worth could be as high as $30 million. $30 million, up from barely $51,000 just a few years ago. The filings reveal most of the money comes from her husband, Tim Mynette's business. What is he in? Well, he's in venture capital. His venture capital firm is valued up to $25 million. His California winery adds as much as $5 million more. Just months ago, Omar pushed back against talk of hidden wealth, insisting she wasn't even a millionaire. She told critics to check her public filings. Now, those very filings put her among Congress's richest. The larger question is about transparency. Congressional disclosures only require broad ranges for assets, especially for private firms. That allows fortunes to balloon on paper with little accountability. For voters, it raises doubts about whether the system is broken or whether politicians have learned to work around it. We're joined now by Peter Schweizer, author of Secret Empires: How the American Political Class Hides Corruption and Enriches Family and Friends. What a timely book, but I guess I could say that about just about every title you've put out. They're very timely, and they always seem to be a little bit evergreen.
Yeah, this is, I think, the big trend in Washington, D.C. It's what I call offshoring corruption. It used to be in the old days that a politician would, get shoeboxes of cash and then they would get caught and they would go to jail. What happens now is political families have their family members do it. It can be their spouse. It can be an adult child. They set up a quote-unquote business. Capital firms are great because it's a vague term. You don't have to disclose a whole lot. And money flows there. This was the Hunter Biden model, of course. The Clintons kind of did this when Hillary Clinton was running for president. And now it seems as if Ilhan Omar and her husband have moved in that same direction because there are these valuations. This firm has, venture capital in the name. But when you actually look under the hood of this business, there doesn't seem to be any engine there. There's no capital per se that they have disclosed. There's no deals that have been announced. What they brag about, Chanel, is their political connections in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere. And, of course, the two founders of this firm are political consultants. They're not finance guys. So that starts to set up a lot of red flags for me.
Well, I mean, it's a familiar pattern. It's a familiar blueprint. It seems like members of both parties do it. But I honestly don't see a way around it. How do you get around preventing lawmakers from gaming the system, using family members to game the system, even when they operate in a setting that supposedly is designed for disclosure, for transparency? How do you get around all that?
Yeah, I think the inherent problem is that these elected officials get to regulate themselves. They get to write the own rules that they live by. So even things like congressional insider trading that, 90% of the American people want banned, I'm not sure Congress is even going to vote on it. You've got Republicans and Democrats that want this practice to continue. And the same names kind of recirculate again and again. I mean, I noticed, for example, that Ilhan Omar's husband's firm, one of his advisors is Max Baucus, who's a former senator from Montana, former ambassador to China. Well, what was he doing last time I heard about him? He was doing China deals with Hunter Biden in China. And now he has sort of reappeared with Ilhan Omar's husband with this firm. So, yeah, it is murky. It appears that this business fits in with others where a lot of it has to do with access and influence peddling. But we need to insist and demand on at least more transparent disclosures. I get it. You marry somebody that somebody may be involved in legitimate business practices, but you ought to at least disclose what kind of business they're in. Who are their major investors? What are their major projects? Ilhan Omar's firm supposedly does a lot of deals in Africa. She sits on a committee in Congress that deals with Africa. Her father was a former official in a Somali Marxist government. Are they making use of those ties? These are legitimate questions that people ought to know. So we can't ban it. I don't think we should ban it, but we should disclose it so we can at least shame these people when needed.
or at least plant in the public's mind this expectation of disclosure, right? Because on the other hand, none of this will happen unless the public demands it, unless the public expects it from candidates who are stepping onto that platform, throwing their hats in the ring. But, you know, what gives a lawmaker like Ilhan Omar the gall to respond to critics and say, go ahead and check my records, and you do, and she is, in fact, the exact opposite of what she is claiming she's not? Is this like a surprise to her, too? I mean, where do they get the stomach to do this?
Yeah, it seems that the surge in wealth has been sudden, because you look at the disclosures from the previous year. This same firm, Rose Lake, they received minimal income, like $5,000 in income from this firm. Now suddenly it's worth, up to $25 million. So it seems like there was a sudden surge of something. But I want to go back to something that you raised earlier, Chanel, that is a brilliant point, and that is our elected officials don't think ordinary Americans care about this stuff. They're not going to move on it unless they believe they are going to lose office if they fail to act. So if we just gripe about it, but we don't let our elected officials know that this is something we are prepared to vote them out of office for, they're going to keep doing it. And the problem with someone like Ilhan Omar is she's in a safe district. She's not in a swing district. And it's one of these elected officials that could probably do just about anything. And her constituents are not going to vote her out. And that is a problem with, all the gerrymandering that took place in Minnesota, that's taking place in California and elsewhere, where they've carved out these progressive districts that are so safe. These people can stand for anything that's out of the mainstream. They can engage in corrupt behavior, and they're not going to lose their seats.
You know, what I love about Bill Pulte over there, he's in the Trump administration. He's the one who is kind of spearheading all these investigations into mortgage fraud allegations against Adam Schiff, Lisa Cook, Letitia James even. You've got these corruption charges that are coming onto the radar for most Americans. I mean, we weren't really talking about mortgage fraud issues in the past when it came to lawmakers a whole lot. At all, even, I would say. But now we're talking about it all the time because we're seeing that a lot of lawmakers do engage in things like mortgage fraud. But what's amazing to a lot of us is that these kinds of acts are just out in the open. And you would think that these politicians would be a little more careful. Be a little more careful than to just lie on public forums as an attorney and say, I have a primary residence in 3 places. You would think they would be a little more careful.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes with arrogance. Unfortunately, I have a friend who was in Congress for 3 terms, and he said the first time he saw what went on in Washington, D.C., it was like a cesspool. After he'd been there 5 years, it started to feel like a hot tub, and that's why he left. And I think that's what you see. You see a lot of arrogance and a lot of the rules don't really apply to me. Yeah. I can save some money on this interest. I can falsify this mortgage thing. It doesn't matter. I'm a senator, I'm a congressman, or I'm a whatever. When the fact of the matter is, talk to the former mayor of Baltimore who went to jail in part for mortgage fraud. This is actual real crime. It harkens back to the Hillary Clinton email case. You remember where they said this isn't really a crime, even though servicemen had gone to jail because they were looking at classified information on unsecured platforms. So again, it's that issue of arrogance and entitlement of our elected officials. They should have the same rules apply to them that apply to us. If they don't like the rules, then change the law for everybody. But don't think you're going to get a special carve out just because you have an important title attached to your name.
Peter Schweizer, always a pleasure to revisit some of these tried and true topics, but it seems like they're always turning up and popping back on our radar. Thank you so much for making the time, as always.
Great to see you, Chanel. Thanks for having me.
Stay tuned. Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Western Hemisphere, Sergio de la Peña, someone who knows quite a thing or two about South America, discusses the U.S. strikes on a Tren de Aragua drug boat in Venezuelan waters. The response to it, what happens next, all that and more. We'll be right back.